Hi there, and welcome back to SciBurst, a podcast about science, popular culture, and entertainment. We're your hosts, Ella
and Isabel, two science communication and sci-fi nerds steering this spaceship into the multiverse of science fun. Today's episode, Naughty's teen media, steminist role models, the competent girl trope, and Aussie media versus the international stage.
So exciting. But before we begin, let's hear some recommendations.
Yeah, so a few weeks ago, I went to a Thelma Plum concert.
Oh my gosh.
It was also my first time in Melbourne Forum.
Such a good venue.
I just want to say that venue is stunning.
Both of us went to Forum for the first time this year, and it's so nice.
It's also, it's actually not that big of a venue.
Yeah, it's quite intimate, really.
Yeah, compared to like other ones I've been to. But yeah, anyway, Thelma Plum, I'm kind of obsessed with her
at the
moment. I love her. I love her sound. Not just the instruments she uses, but also her voice and the sorts of things she sings about. You should go listen to her.
Stunning. An Australian artist.
Yeah.
We love. Speaking of artists, the recommendation I have today is someone I follow on Twitter. Her name is Kelly Stanford at The Lab Artist on Twitter. And she is a science artist. She's so cool. I've been following her online for a couple of years now. Recently she's been into realistic bee illustrations. Yeah, I don't know if you know about scientific illustrations as like a field, but it's this whole thing in itself of visualizing science and doing diagrams and realistic drawings. So she's kind of started to go, or I've seen recently her going into there with like realistic bee drawings.
Cool.
But she does heaps of like science communication poster creation and SciComm poster art. Lots of drawings. And she's kind of like most well known for like her most accessible, I guess, style and recognizable is she does lots of drawings with cats standing in as scientists.
I'm just thinking of those cat memes. You know those science cat memes?
I think they might actually be her. Like if you're thinking about, because all I can think about are her ones. I'm gonna tweet it about it. She's so cool. I've been following her ages.
Is she one of those people who also does the petri dish art?
I don't think so.
No, she's more like drawing.
Yeah, she's like definitely a drawing version of visual media.
Wow, cool. I have to go check her out.
She's so cool. But yeah, I love cats as like these representations of scientists. That just makes it really accessible and visual. Talking about representations of scientists. Ooh, very exciting stuff where we're going to go in this episode. Before we begin, it's super important to both of us that we acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the first scientists and scientists from the longest continuous culture on Earth. SciBurst would like to acknowledge the lands on which we record, the Ngunnawal and Ngambri country. We'd also like to pay our respects to traditional elders, past, present, emerging, and future. So Isabel, we've all heard that you can only be what you see, right? And role models are super necessary to heighten our feelings of what we think is achievable, and we can only, be what we see represented.
Yep.
It's pretty well known, and I feel like we both experienced this in the media that we consume, that there is significantly less female representation in media of, of women as intelligent or scientifically minded, or if they are, like, positively framed in these ways too. So it's super hard growing up to, as a girl, see yourself as a scientist.
Yeah, even just seeing them as a lead can be rare.
Yeah, just like not being the secondary character.
Yeah, exactly, the assistant.
Super tricky. Yeah. And when we, don't get this representation, when we don't see ourselves reflected or, the potential of ourselves reflected, I think that really, really contributes to how women are underrepresented in STEM. And we see this in high school science classes. We see this in universities, we see this in workplaces. But we're not here to talk about that. We're not here to talk about, bad representation of women in STEM in movies and media. I feel like that's...
Well, we will a little bit.
We will a little bit. But I think actually we've seen in media that we grew up with, the start of a really, really cool thing.
Yeah, I think we've picked a really good period in time of media to look at, because I honestly think it marks the start of something really positive.
The start of something new, you might say.
Oh, the start of something new. Love that reference. And you know where that reference is from?
Only the greatest film trilogy of all time.
That would be High School Musical, which I believe after
I
did it again. After rewatching it, I think is a steminist masterpiece, and Gabriella Montez is a literal queen.
Absolutely agree, 100%.
So in this film, being good at STEM is actually not portrayed as an unattractive or undesirable thing as it is in so many other media, I think.
Yeah, no, fully. And I don't think I realized this until we started talking about it.
Yeah, well, actually, it's really funny because I suggested High School Musical ironically as an episode idea.
And I was like, no, but wait, it's
But hang
actually
on.
perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, so STEM is not portrayed as unattractive or weird or incompatible with good social skills. And Gabriella Montez is a very good example of this.
Can we jump into talking about what the movie is? Like, what if some listeners for some reason haven't seen High School Musical?
Won't know?
I think we should do a recap.
Oh God, how do we explain
So
it?
High School Musical is a trilogy. I realized very recently from a friend who told me it's the same plot repeated 3 times.
They're probably not
every
wrong.
film. They're not wrong, as I realized. But it's a movie trilogy set at high school in America. It's about these people who, are kind of just like understanding themselves and understanding their hobbies and their likes and what they want to pursue.
Yeah.
It's definitely like a teen drama coming of age.
It's like a romance.
Yeah.
It's a cute boy meets girl.
It's a musical.
It's a musical.
We love it. There are so many positives to High School Musical, and I think it really like had a cultural grip on our age group growing up.
On our generation, for sure.
100%.
For sure.
So if you haven't seen High School Musical,
Go watch it.
there's not really going to be that many spoilers, I don't think, because we're mainly talking about themes, but just watch it for yourself, Watch it for yourself and then message us as to how it positively impacted your life and how much, what your favourite songs are.
Except for that small group of people who do not like musicals and really do not like this film.
Those people exist.
Yep. Unfortunately. No, but you do you. You can like what you like.
Yeah, you can like what you like, but you should like this.
Anyway, so Gabriella Montez is one of the main characters. She's the main female character in this film. And she's just transferred from another school. Was it from another state? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Anyway, at this previous school, she was seen as the quote-unquote freaky math girl. And so she doesn't want to be that again in this new school.
And we see this in like her establishment of character, right? Like the first time we see her on screen, she's like nose in a book, doesn't want to go to a party.
Yeah.
Typical, nerdy, I guess, introduction.
Yeah.
But it doesn't stay typical for very long, I don't think.
No, well, honestly, the minute she gets pushed on the stage.
Yeah, what is it, like minute 4 of the film?
It's really early.
Changed.
But you see, like, she's also really good at singing. She's not just a, like, nerdy math science girl.
Yeah, like, she has more than one dimension.
What?
Female characters can have that in movies?
Oh, my gosh. Female characters can be complex.
Women can be complex?
Anyway, so because she was seen as this freaky math girl at the previous school, she sort of anticipates that in her new school, which actually doesn't happen, really.
I think that's such an interesting insight for us as viewers watching it, being like, we're expecting these connotations of freaky math girl to hit, same as she is. And we really don't see that reflected at all throughout the film.
No.
It's kind of like gives us a really believable way to suspend our disbelief, at least in that aspect.
Yeah. And I mean, I was talking to Elle earlier and saying there was actually a lot more hate on the drama club than there was on science in the film.
Like drama club being the
weird
outcast
thing
of the school.
Yeah, and baking as well. They have a problem with one of the basketball players being a baker. Anyway.
As someone who bakes a lot in their life, I would like to say nobody has a problem with how much I bake because everyone gets baked good. So I don't really understand that drama. Come on, Disney.
And so one of the characters does call her an Einsteinette in one of the scenes just briefly. And in other movies, maybe that would have been a negative thing, but it's actually the way that he says it is like a compliment.
And that's super key, right?
Yeah. I love that. She's not defined by her smartness. As we just talked about, she wears cute clothes, has cute hairstyles.
She's like someone that Disney want you to be.
Yeah.
They're not making her, you know, undesirable, unattractive.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, no, look how cool she is. She's, you know, dresses cute. She's intelligent. She has friends, like really good friends too.
Yep. Good at performance.
Yeah.
Good at basketball, apparently, too.
Yeah. Just what can this girl not do?
Very independent.
Yeah.
She actually makes decisions in a very logical way.
And rationally.
Well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess she's like, because she does all these things, right? She's not defined by any one of them.
No. I just love her.
I just love her and I want to be her.
And then her best friend.
Oh my God, her best friend. Can we take a minute to talk about Taylor McKessie?
Yeah, let's talk about her.
Okay. So speaking of like supportive friends, and I really love supportive friendship, especially supportive female friendships to play like just depicted through film.
Mm-hmm.
Like both of these girls, Taylor and Gabriella, they're both super intelligent and they're not competitive with each other, like always trying to get a leg up over each other. So, you know, Taylor is the head of the science club when we first, you know, encounter her. Mm-hmm. She encourages Gabriella to make decisions for herself.
Yeah.
Such as uni, such as not being defined by a boy, such as thinking through her choices.
Yep.
And yeah, I think Taylor is this really great character who's really determined and is also really, really true to herself. She kind of is, in one sense, the smart girl stereotype, you know, standard brainiac.
Yeah.
But even though she's a secondary character, like she's not the lead, we still see so much more from her, like being a great friend, being really resourceful. You know, she can be a bit manipulative and, okay, maybe more than a bit manipulative. You know, she's the source of one of the major conflicts.
It's okay. She redeems herself.
Within, especially the first film.
Yep.
But it's super interesting watching her arc throughout the trilogy because Taylor becomes, you know, more herself. Like she starts to express herself and the direction she wants to go in life. She, transitions away from just like this like stock standard intelligent character to someone who's like really driven and business oriented and knows where she wants to go and doesn't take no for an answer, but just like is really determined, and that in itself is not seen as a bad thing. You know, she's not being like oh my God, what are all those criticisms when it's like if you're a girl you're bossy, but if you're a guy you're assertive? I think she's portrayed as assertive. She's not portrayed as bossy. Like I think it's actually shown really positively.
I think I agree with you.
Where and how she's driven and motivated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. And she doesn't let anything hold her back for where she wants to go, and
she encourages other girls to do the same.
Yeah.
Like she
does.
Kind of like the definition of like women lifting up and supporting other women.
Yeah, and you know that that presentation she gives to Gabriella in the first film where she's not doing it for good reasons.
No. No, she's very selfishly motivated.
Shows Gabriella a whole bunch of like key women in STEM throughout history, or just important women in general in history, and is trying to use that to lift up other women who are good at STEM and want to go into STEM.
Yeah, I also think if we take a step back from like the plot of the film, and like as viewers, we know that Taylor is not doing a good thing. But if you step inside her brain, she genuinely thinks she's helping out Gabriella.
Yeah.
She's like, this boy is holding you back. He's not letting you reach your full potential. I don't even think you like singing that much. Like, from what I know about you, this is where I think you need to go, and I'm going to help you to do that. Obviously, she's wrong. There's more to Gabriella than even she knows at this point in time.
Yeah.
But I think it comes from a place of love, and that's what makes it redeemable.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't recommend manipulating your friends like that. But I do recommend major character growth and development, which is what we see from Taylor. In that, so that was actually quite a lot of, you know, character-driven stuff, but also quite a lot of plot. Can we talk about how science is such a big part of the plot in High School Musical?
Oh my gosh, I have so much to say about this.
Please say some things about this.
Okay, so science is a major part of the plot in High School Musical in several different ways. One of those ways is, like we were just talking about, that presentation Taylor gives to Gabriella Montez, where she's using science to draw Gabriella away from the musical and singing.
Distractions.
Yeah, like as a distraction and away from her boyfriend. Can we call him her boyfriend.
I saw this really interesting, not criticism, I was on TV tropes, which if you ever just want to, dive headfirst into media, looking at the tropes in films that you enjoy or like super interesting. And this one was talking about how Gabriella sings about breaking up with her boyfriend after only dating him for a week. And then 15 minutes later, takes him back in the world of the film, which is something I'd never quite clocked before. But long story short, I guess you can call Troy her boyfriend.
Yeah, right. There are whole debates about this because they never confirm it on screen, but we're not going to get into that.
Tea isn't tumultuous.
Because we want to focus on science. Anyway, another way to keep out of the plot is Troy and Gabriella's secret meetup place is the science club garden.
How romantic is STEM?
They managed to make, they use it as a distraction. They managed to make it romantic. They use it as part of the solution.
I want someone to distract, romance me, and give me a solution in the science garden, please.
Oh, what did we want to say about the decathlon?
Let's just talk about the decathlon. How fun that's the climax of the film.
Yeah.
And the decathlon is seen as equally as important as a major basketball game.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's right.
Because I feel like often in movies and in media and, lots of teen content we consume, especially from America, sports games are given kind of like this massive pedestal and everything is secondary to that.
Yeah. Well, it's also usually used as the key event in high school, right? But yeah, they equally split between the big basketball game and the big science decathlon.
Sharing the stage, if you will.
Also, something interesting we found about it is in Gabriella's, their high school is called East High. I realized we didn't mention that before.
It's crucial, they're the East High Wildcats.
Yeah. On their team, it's mainly women.
Yeah.
Right? It's mainly girls.
So three out of the five.
Yeah, and then 2 of them are boys. But then on the other team, it's 1 of them is a girl.
And the other 4 are guys.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of a more typical ratio that we've come to accept and come to expect. So I really like the shakeup in it. We were looking through the film and I was like, wow, look how many of, the good team, the protagonist team are women. That's super, super, I know, important and impactful and powerful, even in such a small way.
Mm-hmm. And also, not just that it's showing more representation of women, but also the diversity in general of it.
It's not just one white woman.
Yeah, exactly. Gabriela Montez is Filipino.
Love.
That's another cool thing about her.
Multifaceted. So we have 3 out of 5 girls in this team. Yeah, 3 out of 5 of these scientists on the team are girls.
Yeah.
They're also a diverse team. And I think with this, Disney's kind of saying, diversity is success. And having an interdisciplinary
because they
team
do
of mixed
win.
Backgrounds is what you need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They do end up winning the decathlon. And another reason I wanted to mention the decathlon is because, let's backtrack a little bit.
Okay, let's go back.
So the major conflict in the film is, well, apart from the whole Troy Gabrielle thing,
it's essentially like everything happening at once, right? By design of the villain.
Yeah. We can call Sharpay the villain, I think.
She's
right?
the antagonist in this film.
Antagonist, that's a better word.
Yeah.
Yeah, she manages to get the events rescheduled so that the big basketball game and the big decathlon event happen at the same time, which means that
as callbacks, it's all 3 of those things happening at the same time.
Yeah, that's right, which means that they're not able to attend the singing callbacks.
Yeah. First of all, they can't support each other in what the other's doing. Second of all, they can't go do the thing they want to do together. And it's kind of saying choose a side, choose a side. And that's something that this film is kind of the whole message is you don't have to.
Yeah. And so science is used as the way of resolving this.
As a solution?
As a solution in multiple ways. So the number one, not the number one, the first way is Taylor and Gabriella managed to get everybody to evacuate the the lab by setting off some like stinky reaction. I don't know what it is, but
I don't know how they did that during a decathlon and everyone just let them.
okay.
That's funny.
Plot hole, we're just going to ignore it, move on.
It makes the film more perfect. I enjoy it.
Yeah. So that's first way. And then the second way is more of a like computer science way where Taylor hacks into the basketball scoreboard system and manages to like freeze the clock.
Again, she pulls out her laptop in the middle of this academic decathlon.
Yeah.
Just, hacks into the mainframe. I'm in.
But I also love that it's the women doing that.
Yeah.
Too. So that is how science is part of the solution in this film.
Love. Again, interdisciplinary problem solving. I mean, that's kind of what science and like education is all about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is ways in which you can be creative and problem solve based on the skill set you have and the types of problems you're about to encounter or likely to encounter.
Yep.
Which we love. Can I take a moment
Yes.
to talk about the one or the only sane one trope?
Go for it.
Okay, so I spoke about tropes a little bit earlier. Again, super fascinating if you want to get into kind of like media studies or you just want to pick apart, entertainment for fun, which definitely we do as we're sitting here at this science and popular culture podcast. So kind of like one of the main themes of this film is, it starts off in a school where they're like, pick one thing. You have to stick to the status quo. You can't play basketball and bake. You can't be intelligent and do hip hop dancing.
Mm-hmm. You can't play basketball and want to sing.
Yeah. Like, that's ridiculous, right? As the viewer, we're all like, of course it's not ridiculous. It's called having hobbies, plural. And Troy and Gabriella are portrayed as the only sane ones who recognize that there is more to life than having one thing that defines you. And everyone else in the school thinks that they're crazy. And I think that's also one of the things that drives them together is they recognize the saneness in each other of, expecting humans to be multidimensional.
Yep.
And I think that's a really cool and positive thing to portray your protagonists as having and as recognizing.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I just want to talk about that and how nice it is to see, kind of like the diverging of paths and it being okay rather than everyone congregating on having like only cheerleaders run the school. Which I think a lot of other teen dramas kind of fall into is everyone has to be good at this one thing because that's central to the plot. Like this plot is, no, it's okay to be great at lots of things.
Yep.
Singing kind of being the thing that brings everyone together because it's a musical and that fits the form and the style.
Yeah.
I also wanted to talk about transitions into competent girls, this trope that we see kind of coming out of this period of film.
Yeah, so this is the big boy transition I think we see happen in noughties media.
We start to see that it's not only okay, like not only tolerated, but there's this mass acceptance of girls being competent in film and of kind of like growing in and blooming into that competency, which is awesome. And as part of this, we see that there are multiple ways of being intelligent if you were described as intelligent. Like you're not just like, the freaky maths girl, but you have like a whole range of intelligence if that's your character. And yeah, I guess kind of in this, we see that there are multiple ways of being a scientist or being a woman in STEM.
Yeah.
Or just a person in STEM. And not all of these images are good, but at least it's portraying that it's just more than one thing.
Yeah.
Because for so long, this was kind of shoehorned into one area, and the noughties is where we see it kind of bloom out and become like this great, colourful thing.
Yeah, like I said before, women in STEM were typically in the past just assistants.
Yeah.
And there was sort of one or two major stereotypes. Helpless and dependent on men as well. So it is very, very satisfying to see this sort of trend emerge.
Yeah, and we are about to launch into a super exciting kind of, we've started off with High School Musical because I think we both feel that is the best example.
Yeah, I think it is.
Early women in STEM in the noughties. But there are so many films where this happens, right? Like the second film you thought of
Mean Girls.
Mean Girls.
Ooh, let's talk about Mean Girls for a
Okay.
minute. Mean Girls is it's not as positive as High School Musical.
But it does represent that shift.
Yeah, I think so because should I explain what what Mean Girls is about?
We can just be like, everyone knows Mean Girls. It's that cult classic early noughties film about trying to fit in.
Yep.
Trying to fit in and seeing yourself become the thing that you disliked.
Also, fun fact, we're recording on a Wednesday.
And my jumper is pink.
And I'm not wearing pink.
Oh, your puffer jacket's kind of pink.
If you got that reference, I love you.
Oh my God, Isabel. I love you too.
Okay, so Katie is the main character in Mean Girls, and she's been homeschooled most of her life. So this film is sort of her first time being in a high school.
And seeing that environment.
So she very much doesn't get it in the beginning. And the whole film is about her figuring out how to fit in, which leads her down pathways that she should not have gone down. That's
Katie,
okay.
please.
She also redeems herself in the end, so we're fine.
Character growth.
Yeah, so her sort of thing is that she's really good at maths, and loves maths. And one of the quotes she says in the film is she likes it because it's the same in every country, which is kind of true, but also kind of not.
I think it's a fun way of thinking about it, though.
Well, because the outcome of the math is the same, but how you get there is slightly different.
Depending on the country you're in.
Yeah, maths is taught slightly differently.
That's super interesting.
Yeah, I mean, probably even across Australia.
Different Australian states.
Yeah, I mean...
Why don't we have one education system? Okay, moving on.
So her parents are research zoologists, so she grew up
Surrounded by STEM.
Good
role models.
In Africa, actually. But in this film, maths is sort of seen as ew. She thinks about joining the mathletes, which is kind of similar to decathlon.
Yeah.
And her friends tell her it's social suicide, don't do that.
And I think at first she doesn't understand, right?
Yeah, because she's sort of like, oh, so in the beginning, it's kind of funny because in the beginning she's like, oh, but I just want to do what
I want to do.
What I like. Then gets manipulated and doesn't do it. But then at the end, she's like, I'm just going to
do what I want. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we have the really interesting thing of her being really good at maths, being told, ew, don't do that, social suicide. And then she pretends to be bad at maths to get the attention of the guy she likes.
Yeah. Girl, what are you doing?
Girl.
Very different to Gabriella.
Very different to Gabriella. Yeah, I think it's super interesting she takes that kind of negative geared approach to...
Yeah. But then, one of the positive things, again, is the way she dresses, and she... it's not negative either.
She's just a person.
Yeah.
But I think...
So she has a similar style to Gabriella in terms of dress and the hair and the...
You still want to be her. You still see yourself in her as the audience watching.
Yeah.
But can we take a moment to talk about, probably why maths is portrayed as negative?
Yeah.
Because it's not this film just decided maths was negative. Maths being negative and STEM being negative is kind of a connotation that we've grown up with, even with media kind of combating it.
Well, and women being into STEM
as
being negative
thing.
as well. Yeah. So historically, the number of fictional female scientists has been quite small. And like I said, not usually leads if they do appear in science films.
So small that you see things like the Scully effect coming into play.
Oh, yeah. We'll talk a bit about that later.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. And the stereotypes you see are also negative. They were negative from the beginning in media.
Yeah.
So I want to give a few examples. The first one is the old maid stereotype, who's only interested in her work, professionally competent, but lacking in quote unquote femininity, meaning she's undesirable.
I hate both of those things being put together so much.
Yep. A second really common one is the naive expert, which is someone who's emotionally and ethically driven, believing in goodness, but keeps getting into bad situations and is rescued by a man each time from those situations.
Yeah, as if you can only be good at one of two things, either being a woman, which is attracting men, or science.
Yeah.
And this is kind of like you've chosen science, so not quote-unquote femininity.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And then a third really common one is the evil plotter, or what I call the femme fatale scientist, who's woman in STEM who's sexually attractive but corrupt and uses their attractiveness to steal information or trick an opponent.
You just can't really win if you're a woman in these situations, can you?
Nope. And so these stereotypes are still usually adult women.
I'd hope so. I really don't like sexualization of teenagers or younger.
Yeah. I mean, you do see that in Mean Girls.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the one thing we forgot to say about High School Musical is they don't sexualize any of the characters either.
You know what? I never realized that, but that is so true. And I hate that we have to look out for that. And that's a positive because so many things don't do that.
Yeah. Ugh. Anyway, yeah. So those portrayals are usually adult women who young girls see but also can't see themselves in.
It's like too many steps away, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's where those portrayals have then trickled into younger female portrayals, I guess, as well. And teen years is a really important time to be seeing that good representation, like diverse representation.
Kind of like in High School Musical, it's like, you know, coming of age is such a popular genre because it is such a key time for people. Like you're figuring yourself out, you want to know what you can do, where you can go, how you're going to get there.
Yeah.
So you want to see something achievable, something that's not like, you know, a 40-year-old femme fatale, but, you know, like someone that's you in like maybe, you know, 5 years max time that you know see as an achievable, you know, representation of self that you could become. Yeah. And teen media is so important because of that.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll talk a little bit more about this later on.
Oh my goodness.
And we still get these negative portrayals, obviously, like Mean Girls. There's another one that I'll talk a little bit about later on. But it's mainly changing.
Which is so positive.
Which is really good.
Let's can we talk about Kim Possible?
Yes.
Let's talk about Kim Possible.
Cartoon example. So again, another example, early teen media, we're now turning to cartoons. So, you know, you can't quite replicate everything about her, but for that age group, she's real. Yeah.
And it's something that you can believe in. And even though it's kind of like a little bit of fantasy, a little bit of sci-fi genre, I think it still hits most of those coming of age categories. Kim Possible as a character is portrayed as hyper intelligent and hyper competent. Like she can do it all. And I think she is such a positive role model that she came to mind immediately when we started thinking about this. And I was like, you know what? I don't even remember if she was good at science. I just remember her being so competent that I can't imagine she wouldn't be.
Yeah, I didn't watch much of Kim Possible, but my brain seems to think it was more the engineering side. Is that correct? I don't know. Don't trust me.
No.
Oh, okay. I'm very wrong, apparently.
She's kind of like a, you know, lives a double life, is a bit of a secret super spy. So there's lots of like action adventure films genres within it. Kim Possible, the character, her parents are scientists, her brothers are scientists. Okay. In her family, she is seen as the least scientifically minded of them, and yet she is notable and like notably really, really good. She gets into a really cool science school. In the episode Graduation Part 1, she applies for and receives acceptances to nearly every single prestigious higher learning institute in the world. Like, that's how capable she is. And yet it also...
Only in the world? What about the universe?
I know. But, like, she's so capable, and that's just, like, almost a throwaway. Like, oh, yeah, she can also do STEM. Like, oh, yeah, she's also a cheerleader and makes time for that, and she makes time for her friends, and she's also a spy, and she balances it all.
Yeah.
Like, how positive.
That's really good.
And she's the protagonist. Like, she's not a secondary character. Her name is the title of the show.
Yeah. Oh, my God. That is a good point, actually.
Yeah, I'm just really excited by that as just like even a small example of the change that we start to see in the early noughties,
Yeah.
early 2000s.
Cool. I feel like I need to go and watch more Kim Possible now.
That can be arranged.
Another cartoon example.
Yeah, let's go there.
SpongeBob.
SpongeBob?
Okay, well, not SpongeBob, but like the show.
Mhm.
Sandy Cheeks, who's the squirrel in it.
Iconic.
She's very much this astronaut image of women in STEM because she wears this astronaut suit because she's obviously she's a squirrel underwater.
Like a deep space suit.
Yeah.
Kind of like imitating that.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, squirrel, so has to wear that.
She's not a sea creature.
No, but she's a scientist and inventor.
Mm.
And she actually came to Bikini Bottom to study sea creatures and their lifestyle, which is kind of cool.
She's a marine biologist.
Yeah. Yeah.
A squirrel marine biologist.
Sorry, that's really funny to think about.
Like, get it, Sandy. You pursue that talent. You pursue that passion.
Yeah. So she's awesome. There's also a literal computer called Karen.
Yeah, who's her own character in her own right. Super intelligent, right?
Yeah. She's supposed to be like probably the most intelligent in the show, I think. Because she's the wife of the like evil dude.
Yeah, we see her as kind of like the most logical character because she's kind of got like all those connotations of being a supercomputer. Like her brain is, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So there it is again. Some really positive.
So that's two examples we see in SpongeBob, which I'd argue is another one of like a really big cultural phenomenon of media in our age group.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. Another cartoon example from me. Probably I'd say this is maybe less influential than SpongeBob, very similar potentially to Kim Possible. Danny Phantom?
Mm-hmm.
Danny Phantom, cartoon show about parents being ghost hunters, son is ghost. Love the tension, love secret identities. I think that's super fun to plot. I just wanted to take a moment to talk about Danny Phantom's mum. Her name is Maddie Fenton. Love the wordplay. Danny Phantom, family name Fenton. Super cute.
Wait, so Danny is a phantom but not a Fenton?
No, he is a Fenton is his last name. He's a phantom because he's a ghost.
He's a phantom Fenton.
Yeah.
I get
it. Go Isabel. So his mum is known as the best scientist in her family. You know, she's an inventor. She studies paranormal activity, which in this universe is science because it happens.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's the world that we're in. She's like the co-owner of this ghost hunting science company, and she's also Danny Phantom's mum, so she is a multifaceted character. But again, hyper intelligent, seen as really capable, more capable than the dad, the father.
Interesting.
Who has the same job as her, and yet she's the one who gets it right every time. He can never use any of the equipment.
Interesting.
She's got it on lock. And I love that portrayal. Like, it's just a small example, and you know, she's not the lead character, but she's pretty crucial to the plot.
I actually think it's a really interesting character because you don't usually see mums.
Is anything other than mums?
Yeah. Well, in these type of shows.
Yeah.
Anyway. Cool.
It's really cool.
Cool.
Yeah, I love it. Like, they didn't have to do that, and I think the show is so much better because it did. So that's just, a really small example, but I think, again, positive in its own small way. Love it.
Yeah, so those are a few cartoon examples. But I want to talk about another relatively big show.
I'd say relatively big. I think everyone at least knows about it, even if they haven't seen it.
Yeah, that one is Zoe 101.
Classic.
Cue the theme song. It's now in my head. So Quinn is one of the main characters in it. And I would say she's on the engineering side, but she is portrayed as the weird one. So this is kind of a negative example. She's got this quirky hair, quirky outfits, glasses, called a spaz.
I don't like that at all.
Made fun of a lot
Totes
by
inappropriate.
various characters. She could be an example of the naive expert,
Yeah, okay.
where she's very much emotionally, ethically driven and creates inventions to help people and to solve problems, but then they usually end up bad and failing. Fun fact, she calls her inventions Quinventions.
I love that. Good name.
But on the positive end, she's also really good at basketball.
Get
And
it.
teaches her love interest as well
How to play basketball.
how to be better at it.
Oh,
Yeah.
love.
So yeah, that there is still there, even though it's mainly negative, there is some positive aspects.
Yeah, and I think positive aspects are, can be few and far between, but at least there are some,
Yeah.
which is good. Another example of similar media, this one definitely wasn't as big as Zoe 101. It's actually a Canadian show. I didn't realize till I looked it up, but it was called Naturally Sadie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anybody else remembers this. I watched it a few times as a kid, and it kind of stuck with me. And I was like, when we were researching for this podcast, I was like, I wonder if anything applies there, because to be honest, I don't really remember a lot from the show. But yeah, Naturally Sadie had like 3 seasons. It follows the main character, Sadie Hawthorne, and she's super interested in nature and the behaviors of animals. So she's very much science focused, biology focused, and really wants to know how it integrates with people. So I think the show is her trying to analyze humans,
Yeah.
very much from that scientific perspective, which I think is super cool, because like she's just following her passion.
Yep. Another competent girly.
Another competent girly in STEM, just doing her thing. And I think it's actually a really cool thing to base the premise of the TV show around. Like, that is the premise. That's not just, an element of her. The whole show is her trying to work out what does happen naturally and what can she learn about the world as she learns about the world in a different way. Like, how can she apply her, biology, science learnings to also her life.
Wow.
And also the people around her.
Yeah, this was one I hadn't really heard of before until you brought it up as an idea.
I was surprised to see it so STEM oriented. Big fan. Thank you to Canada for producing that one.
Nickelodeon? Was it Nickelodeon? Was it Disney?
Yeah, I think it was a Nickelodeon one. I think this next one though, Isabel. This is one that we were like, does it apply? Is women in STEM? Is this? And yes.
Yeah, so I actually think this is a really interesting example.
Yeah, pretty multi-layered.
So we're going to talk about Jimmy Neutron.
Whoa.
For a minute. Focusing on Cindy Vortex.
So, first of all, such a cool name.
They all have pretty cool names in the show and film.
Yeah,
plural. I'm not
there's
sure.
At least one film.
Yeah. Anyway, so on the surface, Cindy is definitely portrayed as a bossy, stubborn, arrogant, mean, spoiled child,
Like baby.
in general. She's the second smartest kid in the class because Jimmy is apparently the smartest.
Boo.
But when you look deeper into it, there's actually reasons for her being this way.
Yeah, they didn't just be like, let's make a mean character for the point of it.
Yeah.
They were like, there's reasons. This is why it's complex. People.
Yep.
Yeah.
So number one, she gets a lot of pressure from her mother to be perfect. So she's actually not just good at STEM, but also has lots of extracurricular activities like karate. She's really good at that.
I mean, another example of if you're intelligent in one way, you're intelligent in other ways.
Yeah, exactly. And also has an absent father, which is also kind of like briefly mentioned, kind of touched on.
Same
Not
with
delved
Gabriella
into.
Montez, though, right?
It's the same, which is kind of interesting too.
Kind of interesting.
Yeah. Hang on.
Yeah.
There's also something else I wanted to say. She's also this way because she's struggling with this frustration of being compared to Jimmy and like her being second and not
And she can
number
never really be
one,
first.
and that the boy is number one. I also watched this really interesting episode. It's weird because it's this crossover between Jimmy Neutron and Fairly Odd Parents, but we're not going to get into that.
I love Fairly Odd Parents.
And so Timmy, who's the main character from Fairly Odd Parents, ends up in the Jimmy Neutron world, and he asks Cindy if she will help her with this science project, and she's surprised that a boy has asked her for help because she expects it to be the other way around.
Yeah.
Which I think is interesting.
I think we're led to believe that as a, culturally.
Yeah.
So interesting to see it reflected here.
Yeah.
So rawly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, clearly Cindy has a lot more going on than what's shown on the surface.
But at the same time is very true to her female self. Like she wears pink, she's got her hair in pigtails.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think it's really interesting how we can have these depictions of women and scientists, and in this case, they're not really side by side. Like she struggles to reconcile with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is super interesting.
I think it is too.
I think it's also super interesting when these ideas of femininity, quote unquote, and, science or STEM aren't acknowledged at all, but they're there.
Yeah.
So jumping into another Nickelodeon show,
Oh,
Drake and Josh.
yeah.
It's again another teen coming of age, very much comedic live action television show about two stepbrothers who clash heads, try to make things work, falls apart. They've got their lives going on.
Mm-hmm.
Their little sister, Megan, played by
Miranda Cosgrove.
Miranda Cosgrove. I always say Miranda sings. Played by Miranda Cosgrove, is an absolute antagonist. And that is so vocally acknowledged by those two. And, she gets away with it all. She's very much kind of like that archetype of the younger irritating sister or the younger irritating sibling even. I don't even think that's like necessarily a gendered thing, which I think is cool in this instance.
Yeah, I was going to say, I actually think it's kind of cool that she's never caught.
She just gets,
Yeah.
It just goes to plan for her, not for them. It ruins them and it makes us
It's always
giggle.
over for them.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting that she is, just kind of a little sibling trying to ruin her big sibling's day.
Yep.
Classic. And she often does this in really, really inventive,
creative,
and innovative ways.
Yeah.
Such as like, rigging up like this whole system to like pour paint on them, or a whole bunch of other, machines, and it's very kind of engineering focused, and a lot of them, even though they do like ridiculous things to them, like, I don't know, spill marbles and make them jump around or wake them up by like a ridiculous amount of alarm clocks. Like, it's kind of just like the things she does are funny, but how she does them,
they're intelligent.
is intelligent.
Yeah.
And that in the show is never really acknowledged. Like, it's never really acknowledged that she's probably like a child genius in this really really weird and kind of unfulfilling way, I guess, in terms of academia.
Yeah. And I mean, she is portrayed as the antagonist, but also in a humorous way.
Yeah.
Like it's not too bad.
Well, it's just kind of an unfocused antagonism. And all the focus is just making their days a little worse and her day a little better. It's not...
Kind of feel sorry for them, not gonna lie.
It's not leading to the good of humanity or anything. Yeah, and I just thought, what a bizarre representation, but actually kind of what a good one. Like, the more we normalize this, the more people are gonna think this is average, not like average behavior, but achievable. Like, if Megan can do it and she's just trying to cause a little bit of chaos, like, what can I do if I want to do something really cool with supportive people? Which is awesome.
Yeah, so there you go. Another competent girly. What's our competent girly count? I don't know.
Many.
So many. So we've talked a lot about American and Canadian shows and films. And Ella and I really wanted to include at least one Australian example, which was hard to find, not going to lie.
It was hard to find, and this TV show immediately came to mind. And you know, we kind of struggled. We thought there were examples where they weren't, which I think is interesting, like where we thought there would be examples and where there actually are examples.
Yeah. Can you guess what this show is?
I'll give you a hint. Emma! The condensation!
That was perfect.
I promise, David, that's for you. I promise you I'd do it.
H2O, just add water.
The best
Iconic.
Australian teen show ever made, in my opinion. I rinsed and repeated that show growing up.
So did I. The remake, not good.
What remake?
we just don't acknowledge Mako mermaids. Okay. No. Yeah. So we kind of tossed and turned about whether the girls in it count as STEM characters. Not sure.
Yeah, like the main girls, they are kind of in and around like this marine park.
Yeah.
They obviously know a little bit about aquatic life because they are aquatic life. And they also, you know, there's some kind of cool things with their powers of like heating and cooling and properties of water. And water is a really fascinating element.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, they're mermaids, if you didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's kind of important.
Really important to address, I guess.
But the villain in season 1 is a scientist.
Let's go.
Is a woman in STEM. So not a teen girl. We want to say mid to late 20s,
Yeah.
I think. Her name is Linda Denman.
Get it, Linda.
Also a side character. So,
She's only in 3 episodes.
yeah. And I think it's kind of only like the second half. Oh no, maybe one at the beginning of the season and then like the last 2 episodes, something like that.
She's kind of the antagonist of season 1.
Yeah.
When it's not the girls themselves. Just figuring each other out.
So I guess an important thing to mention about her is that young girls can't see themselves.
She's kind of past that age where you know, if you're a 12-year-old
Yeah.
watching this, you're not going to be like, oh, I'm going to be like her when I grow up, because she's just a bit too far out of the age range, really.
Yeah. And if you do see yourself in her, she's not a good example to follow.
Bit villainous. Bit unethical.
So she studies a DNA sample of Cleo.
Cleo.
How many times are we going to do that?
There's so many.
And so she sees cellular mutation.
In Cleo's DNA.
Yeah, when she adds water to it.
H2O just had water?
Yeah, so she starts writing this paper, and that's where the show gets its name from, because the paper is called H2O Just Add Water.
Oh my God, so meta.
Which is kind of cool.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it.
She is an example of that femme fatale scientist that I touched on a little bit earlier, because she's sexually attractive to the boy
Lewis.
Lois.
Lewis.
We're including all of those.
Oh no.
And so she, it's not explicitly like mentioned, but it's sort of hinted at in the way that the way that the scenes are filmed, that she's using her attraction to get Lewis to get information for her.
Yeah, she's using him.
So
She's manipulating
She is
him.
definitely using him. Yeah, not explicitly said that it's because he's attracted to her, but it's sort of implied.
I mean, TV is a visual medium, and that's definitely shown through images.
Yeah.
Because that's how she gets the sample in the first place, right? Is it?
No. So I'm such a nerd.
Tell me. I love nerds. Tell me more.
So I think it's because Lewis leaves it in the lab. Oh, because he's obsessed with her and manages to get a job.
In her lab. In Linda's lab.
Yeah, and he leaves a sample there, and she's like, oh, what's this? And then looks at it and then discovers more, and then spends like the rest of the time she's in the series trying to get more information from him.
And she writes the paper, right? And isn't that like a plot point of them trying to make sure it doesn't get published, or doesn't go anywhere?
Yeah, they try to go in and delete it and all of that. Mm-hmm. And then she traps them in their special cave so she can experiment on them Totally
Again,
ethical.
Ethics, approval was not sought. We don't recommend. If you find any mermaids in your life, please get ethics clearance before you experiment on them. Maybe just ask them nicely. Don't steal biological samples.
So this is probably the most negative example.
Which is sad because it is our Australian
Because
example.
it's Australian. But then also think about the numbers of women in STEM in Australia versus the United States, and it sort of makes sense.
Yeah, we have less women in STEM in Australia than in the US, which is sad. Our stats are sitting at 28% women in STEM in Australia. In the US, it's slightly higher at 36% of the STEM workforce.
Yeah, and then which is mirrored in science films and science shows.
Yeah, but also that mirroring perpetuates it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's kind of like a positive feedback loop that's super negative.
They feed onto each other, really.
Yeah, which is really sad to acknowledge how small it is. Like in Australia, that's less than a third. Significantly less than a third. And in the US, it's just over.
That's the most depressing thing I've heard today.
I'm so sorry. Can we bring it back somehow? We can, but not in this section. They're not incredible numbers when it comes to women in STEM in media or in the workplace and how that's shown. I'm going to talk about these surveys that we found.
Yeah. So there was one survey. This was like 91 to 2001, so before these films. But they did a survey of over 70 science-related films and only found 23 female scientists across all of them, which is 31%
of representation.
Yeah, which see how it's mirroring the statistics in the real world. And then another one, which did an even bigger survey of close to 400 films featuring scientists, only found 22% of them being women scientists.
So the real numbers right now, 28% in Australia. And in these surveys, we've got 31% and 22%.
Yeah.
So that's scarily similar.
Yeah.
And I think they have to change together.
I think so too.
Yeah. I recently did a study as part of my science communication courses on women in engineering in Australia. Pretty harrowing statistics from that, kind of devastating coming out from it.
Yeah, engineering is even worse.
Engineering is the lowest female represented subject, field, discipline in Australia when it comes to STEM. There's this 25-year study that I was looking at, and it found that in Australia, over 25 years, that is substantial, right? There has never been more than 17% of women enrolled in an engineering degree in their first year.
Oh my God. So that's only people enrolling. So that's not even what happens afterwards.
No,
right?
This is still they're still in the pipeline. It never got higher than 16.7%. So never even over 17%, never even, 1 in 5. We never got there.
Okay, I take back what I said before. This is the most depressing thing I've heard.
And
today.
The thing that I take away from this is the leaky pipeline is real. There are so many opportunities for women to fall out of the gap of STEM.
Yep.
And this is something that we're both super passionate about. We've both felt the pressures of being women in STEM. You feel like you kind of have to be perfect or you shouldn't be here because there's so few of you that if you're going to represent like an entire gender, you got to do it right.
Yeah, which is why those media portrayals are so important because they're part of keeping people in the pipeline. If you think about it, you're in your science class in school, and if you had a bad day in your science class, come home, the thing that you're watching is something like Zoe 101 or Chem Possible or...
Yeah, and is that going to be the thing that makes you feel better about science or worse? And how is that actually going to interplay with your real life and decisions you make and how supported you feel? I think it's really, really important to acknowledge that media is super powerful and what we see is what we get.
Definitely.
But also, to come back to, I don't know, I feel like in reflecting on how much I love High School Musical and how much I grew up with it, I feel like maybe a reason that I am in STEM is because of it, and a reason that I feel like I can do both arts and science, and I had an 8-year basketball career because of High School Musical.
Yeah, because we talked a little bit about this before recording this episode too, and I never really thought that much about it, but I do think a film like High School Musical was actually really important
For us.
For like our career pathways.
Yeah, and our generation. And that's so positive. Even despite that, we still get imposter syndrome. We still feel...
Who? Me? Imposter syndrome? What?
Always. We still feel these pressures, and we've had positive media growing up.
Yeah. So it is getting more positive.
But the boundaries are still there. Can we talk about one of the earlier things that I brought up before? The Scully effect?
The Scully effect. So that comes from this show, The X-Files, and Dana Scully, who's one of the main characters.
Protagonist.
She's a protagonist, yeah. It was a show mainly from the 90s. I think they did reboot it recently, but I don't know how well that's done.
Yeah, I don't know either.
She is a woman in STEM, works in the FBI. Is it the FBI? I'm not sure. Anyway, she does investigations, but also has a STEM background.
Is she like a forensic person?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
It's sort of not, I haven't watched too much of it, but it's also sort of not defined.
She's just a vague woman in STEM.
But she's a very interesting character who actually inspired a whole generation of STEM girlies before us.
Amazing.
Yeah, because she is the one who, her partner is more on the like...
Ooh,
aliens side. I want to believe. and Dana Scully is the rational one. Yeah. The woman is the rational one and always brings it back to STEM and thinking logically and critically thinking.
And that was groundbreaking.
Yeah. And a lot of the time she's right. Or at least her thinking sends her on the right paths. So yeah, inspired a whole generation of women in STEM. And there's been heaps of studies and surveys on this, which found that moderate or heavy women X-File viewers say that Scully did influence them to study and work in STEM fields, and that most regular viewers say that she also increased their belief in the importance of STEM. So even if they don't go into STEM, they acknowledge how important it is.
Which is crazy. This is one female character who has an entire effect named after her, almost an entire generation of viewers, not even just women, acknowledging the impact of STEM and being able to see themselves in her. Yeah. From one female character in the 90s.
Scully could be a whole episode. There's actually a lot to say about her.
And a lot of studies on it too.
Yeah. I almost did an honours project on it.
I mean... Masters? So that's like an older example,
That's
right?
an older example, yeah. But if we look into the future and also what's happening at the moment in teen media, there's been a lot of growth even just from noughties and pre-2010s.
Yeah, so pretty much everything we spoke about in our episode today has been between 2000 and 2010.
Yeah, around that.
But a lot of the ideas that we were floating around at the start were all these ones that actually kind of came like from 2012 almost onwards.
Yeah. And what's really interesting is we see a lot more in the engineering realm, a lot more women in engineering.
I think we kind of came out of this idea of like science and maths into STEM in that kind of time period.
Yeah. So we got shows now like, oh, well, I don't think this one is still going, but Ant Farm.
Love, all about intelligent kids or like, with hyper-specific like genius traits or specialities, which is super cool to see.
Casey Undercover.
We love Zendaya.
Lab Rats.
An entire show focused around STEM.
Big Hero 6.
Oh my God. I love Big Hero 6.
The 100, which I don't know how I feel about that show because I've heard many not very good reviews about it.
Oh no.
But apparently it's got girls in STEM in it.
Love.
The 13th Doctor is a woman.
Finally.
Felicity from Arrow. Oh, yeah, this one that I thought of the other day, Davy in Never Have I Ever.
I haven't seen
You've
it.
seen it?
No.
She's a good example too, because she's another competent girl trait where she's good at so many different things.
And one of them is STEM.
One of them is STEM.
Amazing.
Yeah. A Series of Unfortunate Events, the TV show.
Let's talk about that,
adaptation.
because the movie from A Series of Unfortunate Events, that came out in 2004. So that's within the noughties time frame we're looking at, even if it's
Yes.
not, like teen or like
Yeah.
quite so like school focused.
No, you could
as I think
say
a lot of the ones
you
we
could
were.
say it's teen though, because I'm
Yeah?
pretty sure 2 of the kids are teenagers. Klaus, who's the middle brother, and Violet.
And Violet. Yeah.
Violet is the key one.
Yeah, and the movie obviously wasn't as in-depth as the TV show is, the new one, because of time. But the character Violet, she's an engineer, right?
Yep. Yeah, she's got this cute little like sequence where every time she's going to do an experiment, ties her hair back with a bow.
Which is kind of like this call to be like, no, I'm a woman. It's kind of like this symbol of like, yes, this, but also this.
Yeah, which it's really interesting because Gabriella Montez also wears the bows.
In her hair?
Yeah, same with Katie. Like that tying back of the hair is some sort of woman.
Trope?
Yeah, symbol.
It's like, get ready for what I'm about to do. It's like, stand back and watch.
Yeah, so it's not, I don't think it's a bad thing.
No.
Some people might disagree with me, but
I agree with you. If you disagree with us, please don't let me know in the comments.
so that's TV shows, films, but also the new Barbie dolls.
Oh my God, I love Barbie.
So now we've got a Jane Goodall Barbie doll, and a Katherine Johnson Barbie doll.
Yeah, and I think that's super important because Barbie is always kind of in this space of you can be whatever you want.
Yeah.
Like, yes, she is a capitalist icon.
But also an important symbol for young girls.
Yeah, like the fact that Barbie can be a painter, but she can also be a vet and a surfer.
Yeah.
And if she
Yeah.
wants to, a fairy mermaid. But like that it's all possible and it's kind of like all this one central character. So it's super cool to see, I think, more specified STEM roles within Barbie right now because it's acknowledged how important that is to have those role models.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's making me excited about the future. What's going to come afterwards.
Yeah, and I think, the future kind of starts with the past and what you consumed growing up.
For sure.
And we did some thinking, and I reckon all of the women in STEM in our peer group that we've gone to uni with, that we went to high school with, that we were all raised in this media. I think a lot of this is, cult classics, really common amongst us.
And I think even if you didn't consume it, you would have known about it.
And the people around you have consumed it, so you're still impacted by it.
Yeah.
And in a very real way, I do think this media did help us to grow and to stay in the pipeline maybe sometimes when it got tricky or, when we could have considered falling out, but we were like, what would Gabriella Montez do? She would go her own way.
I want someone to count how many references we made in this podcast episode.
At least 2. So I think, consciously reflecting on it now, we can see that. But I think subconsciously the impact is probably bigger than we'll ever know and probably in a way that we'll never be able to study or to quantify. But that's okay because some things are more important than quantifying. Some behaviors are complex and pop culture, has this really real impact.
Yeah.
And I think, taking a step back from maybe even this specific topic, I think that's one of the reasons why this podcast idea kind of grips us both and we really hope interests and educates and excites all of you.
Yeah.
Is because pop culture is highly influential as to who we are as people and what we see is what we consume and what we consume is what we see.
I feel like in so many ways that I'm not even aware of, it's shaped me.
Yeah. And it's something that, a lot of people have in common and it's like pop culture. Like it is
It is pop culture.
like popular because it impacts so many people, right?
Yeah.
But culture being this really real and integral thing to the way that humans are social animals that we live and we design our lives by and that we strive towards. Like there's so much to be said for it. And I think a lot of the time we try and keep science as separate to culture. Like science is fact and culture is art and expression. But the two are so tied together, and they always have been.
Yeah, that's so funny you mention this, because the first sentence of my honours thesis is every culture has a science.
Are you okay? Honest trauma coming back. That is a banging first sentence.
It's so good, and I'm so proud of it.
I'm so proud of you. That's awesome.
Thanks. Wow. Okay, so we've talked about a lot in this episode so far.
We've covered a lot of movies, TV shows, deeper cultural impacts of this early noughties media on women in STEM. I think it's really important to like take a moment and sit with the media that impacted you as a kid, or as a teenager growing up, and maybe thinking about some of the other impacts it's had on you that maybe you've never thought about before, because we discovered so much about ourselves and our early STEM beginnings just in making this.
Yeah, learnt so much more about High School Musical,
which can only be a good thing.
I now have a new appreciation for that film that
would never have existed.
Yeah, that I didn't think I could have, but now I have it for STEM reasons as well, which is amazing.
It is amazing. Oh, STEM and popular culture. Look at you go.
Hi, we're back.
Welcome.
So for my individual section, so we've talked a lot about how important media and pop culture is for representations of young girls in STEM and teenagers wanting to go into STEM. But I want to touch on how teen media in general is so important for helping teenagers feel seen, which I think is like the ultimate power of teen media, and STEM representations are one aspect of that. So we kind of only just came out of our teen years, if you think about it. It's only been a few years.
Very much teenagers at heart still.
Yeah, so my experiences of it are very much in my head still. Like they still feel kind of fresh. And they were very difficult years and confusing.
So much is happening.
A lot is happening. Big changes, drama.
Your brain goes through and prunes half of its synaptic connections. So you like lose a whole bunch of information you had because your brain is getting ready for adulthood. Like there is so much that you can't even see that's physically happening.
Not many adults like you, because they're like, oh, here comes the stupid teenager again, the irritating teenager again.
As if teenagers can do anything about that.
Yeah, and it's, you're not a kid, but you're also not quite an adult.
It's just like a really weird and tricky time period.
It's just a really weird time period. Oh, plus high school is a whole other thing that you have to deal with at the same time.
Melting point of like hormones and a time schedule that isn't set to your sleep delay onset. Like your body is going through so much. You're going through so much. You're in a really stressful time that they make everyone your age do to get this, education, this final mark. You're all striving towards this thing that you're not even sure if you want half the time.
Mm-hmm. And so I think that films and TV shows and books and Barbie dolls with characters of teen years and people like them set in familiar settings like school helps teenagers feel competent and not alone in what they're going through. It helps them. I think it helps you make sense of your emotions and validates your emotions and experiences.
Say, it's really validating to see this struggle is universal, but so many people are going through it.
Yeah, and I think I didn't realize it then, but reflecting on it now, I think it was very important. So yeah, like I said, STEM representations of young women is only one aspect of it. And I wanted to give a few examples that aren't STEM related. So teen media usually centers around quite difficult topics. Yeah, very real and very relevant topics.
Yeah, because it's right when the bigger topics, you know, can make sense to you and can start impacting you in very, very real ways.
Exactly. It's often the first time, your teen years is often the first time that you have to deal with a big
conflict or challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of those things is bullying.
Mean Girls, classic example of that.
Mean Girls is a really good example of that. Peer pressure, which does come up in High School Musical with the whole stick to the status quo.
Yeah, stay in your box, stay in your lane.
Stay in your box. Depression.
Yeah.
Particularly young men going through depression, because that is something that's not talked about.
Nearly enough of it should be.
Yeah. So a really good example of that is Charlie in Perks of Being a Wallflower.
Which is such a brilliant book and film.
Which is really good.
Yeah. Go consume that media. I highly recommend.
Yeah. And more recently, I'm going to talk about Davy again.
Go for it.
In Never Have I Ever, who's a high-achieving young woman, but also grieving the loss of her father.
Which is a huge, huge loss for anyone of any age to go through.
Yeah.
But as a teenager, monumentous.
Yeah. So very big topics that it's covering. And in summary, teen media, I think, is really important. Even though it can be sometimes cheesy and cliche, it does deal with some really, really crucial things to talk about that aren't talked about otherwise, maybe.
Yeah, it's kind of like a really good avenue and venue.
Yeah.
For people to be, you know, to feel seen and reflected and validated.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, thanks, Isabel.
Oh, no worries.
I feel like I'm going to think about this all night long. Probably when I'm trying to go to sleep. In a good way, though. Yeah, kind of going back to ideas of we can only be what we see in the world, with women in STEM and women being displayed as intelligent and capable being one of the most powerful tools we have into making real world women feel capable and intelligent and like those spaces they can take up and areas they can flourish in, and the importance of media. X-Men First Class.
I was like, where are you going with this?
Where I always go with this. Back to my favorite movie, X-Men First Class. X-Men First Class, I think some really, really interesting and also really valid criticisms of it are its portrayal of women. A lot of women in that film are portrayed as, you know, femme fatale, or they're sexualized, or they've got kind of like these classic tropes, which I don't love. I'm going to be real with you. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of it all the time. I kind of get it for the time period it's displaying. But I think one of the best depictions of women they have is Moira McTaggart, who played by Australia's own Rose Byrne.
Oh my gosh, Australian,
yeah, one of our trailblazers. She, as kind of like a character introduction, is kind of like on this CIA stakeout, and she sees this guy that they're, you know, watching and want to know what he's up to, go into this, you know, kind of like club where there are some sexualized women, and basically they can't track him anymore because he's gone into that thing. And, you know, she's with her male partner and he's like, oh, guess we can't do a stakeout anymore. And she's like, I don't think so, buddy. Takes off her clothes underneath, wearing a full like lingerie set, and she's like, I'm gonna use assets the CIA didn't give me, and just struts in and infiltrates the club. Like, yes, she is sexualized, acknowledging that, but she has agency over it. And it's not something anybody asked or demanded of her, because that would be grossly inappropriate and not okay. But she's been like, this is something I want to do. I have these skills and these assets that nobody else does. She's very much kind of like a trailblazer in her CIA group of like a woman who's just trying to get out there and do the best work she can. And she's going to take every moment that she can and press every advantage, which I think is super important. And as much as, it's not sensational when all your depictions of women are sexualized, but having it come from her and giving agency back over
makes
it
a difference. Yeah,
my body, my choice, almost. I thought that was a really good moment.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think is really good. A really good example of how capable and intelligent she is. And that's something that I would, I think like to see more. And I think the more we move away from all of our images of women being sexualized or naive or in those tropes, the more we can play around with these ideas of agency and have them mean more. So, that's kind of the note I wanted to end my little personal section on. But questions for the audience.
Oh,
After listening to all of this, and thank you so much for listening to our 3rd podcast episode. I think we're super proud of this one.
Yeah, I think we are. And maybe before we go into questions for the audience, I just wanted to thank our listeners for all the really nice feedback.
So much nice feedback. Honestly, it makes my day whenever I get someone message us or...
Some of it may or may not have made us cry.
Definitely made me cry.
But thank you for listening to us and giving us feedback. And
and if you have any suggestions or ideas...
please tell us.
At @sci_burst on pretty much every social media. We'd love to know. And I guess answers to these questions too, please feel free to comment on our Instagram or to DM us. Or
I've also started adding the questions to Spotify, so you can answer through there too.
Oh, can somebody try that feature so we know that it works? That'd be sick.
So back to questions for our audience. What other girls in STEM tropes have you seen in pop culture?
And on that, so what have you seen, but what would you like to see?
Well, what would you want to see?
And what other early noughties, women in STEM, girls in STEM representations can you think of? Because there were so many more that I think we didn't think of.
Oh my gosh.
And then, we ended up putting this episode because they were, but I'm sure there is a vast knowledge of pop culture out there in all of your brains, so would love to hear.
Yeah, and I'm sure you have a lot to add about the media we did cover as well.
And we'd love to hear it.
We would love to hear it. We're only 2 brains, so...
would love some more brains to come in and help us out on this, I guess, like, journey of understanding together, which is really cool.
So please let us know. Stay nerdy.
Stay very, very nerdy, friends.
And we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to ANU CPAS for their support and access to their podcast studio.